Off the Ivy, a Chicago Cubs podcast with Dan Bernstein, Matt Abaticola, and Cody Del Mendo on 312 Sports.
Off the Ivy on 312 Sports is brought to you by Russ Armstrong and Chicago Window Guys. Give him a call. You need windows. Don't screw around with everybody else. You know Russ, he's in Chicago. The factory's here in Chicago. He's got you. 847-302-9171. And check out his 5-star reviews at ChicagoWindowGuys.com. Matt Abaticola is off today. Cody Del Mendo is here. And Shota Imanaga pitches his ass off. And you end up having to come from behind to stay in the game, only to lose it again. And it kind of felt right. I wasn't even mad. It's at the point now where I'm like, well, okay. It's, you flip away, you come back, like, oh, sure. Here's a couple guys on. And it was, I'll get to it on DBU, but I will be honest that because of what was going on in that basketball game, which was an all-timer, an all-time NBA Finals game, I didn't mind having my attention pulled in some other directions and checking in on the Cubs and watching it happening here and a few at-bats here, be like, that's about right.
Yeah. I got to say, Matt took the perfect time to miss a couple days. Like, I don't know. For anyone listening or watching, I'm just going to openly admit, like, it's hard to come on here and try and come up with new things to say. Like, I feel like we just could be repeating the same podcast every day these days. But, last night we said at the end of yesterday's show, all the terrible numbers for Lorenzen. Here comes the shutout.
Didn't matter. The
first couple innings, it looked like that was what we were going to get. And to be honest with you, like, since coming back from Europe, I thought I had just adjusted back to our time zone pretty quickly, but I actually fell asleep through the middle of the game last night because I was just tired. And like I said yesterday, I woke up super early and I couldn't go back to sleep. So
it'll take you a little bit of time. It's not an easy, like, until you've experienced it or you learn some of the tricks and the old wives' tales about all that stuff. It gets you when it gets you.
Yeah, but I woke up as the game ended, so I didn't even know, like, how some of the runs were scored, and I'm kind of glad I missed it. It's like you got a great outing out of Shota, but you can't score any runs off of Lorenzen and a bullpen that, I mean, despite all the names, and I still think it's fine. Like, it's not a bad bullpen. It's just fine. It's not elite. It's fine. But one of the best relievers you've got, who's been productive for you, Jacob Webb gives up the homer, and then Ian Happ ties it to instill some hope, I guess you can say, and then Palencia, who overall has been fine, but I think some of the batted ball data on him might show that he's not fine, and it's just getting walked off by the Rockies. I thought yesterday was rock bottom, Dan, or the first game was rock bottom. Now I feel like last night's game is rock bottom. If you get swept today, I guess that's the new rock bottom. It's just finding new levels of misery watching this team. It's insane that they're at 34 and 34.
They're at 500.
500 after being 15 games above 500, 2 10-game winning streaks. I know the Cubs are the Cubs, and you just look at their franchise history and 1969 and some seasons where 2019 where they were in the playoff race, lose 9 games in a row towards the end of the year in September. They missed the playoffs. 2023 is another one of those seasons where, they were bad, but then they were good. And then in September they collapsed. Like, the only saving grace is that we're 500 and it's June 11th. There's still a lot of season to go, but there's nothing from this team in the way that with our eyes is that shows us that they're going to turn it around. And that's just how it feels. Maybe it's more than just how it feels. Maybe it just is what it is. Maybe they're just not good. And maybe it's because of injuries. Maybe it's because of regression, because Alex Bregman hasn't been what you needed him to be, because guys like Dansby Swanson have not been good enough, even just the league average hitter, Nico Horner, the slump we talked about yesterday, Seiya Suzuki, who we probably haven't criticized enough, 2 strikeouts against Lorenzen last night, and I think on 3 pitches, both times, just atrocious. He's got an OPS under 800. Maybe it's a combination of all those things, and it just comes back to it's just incredibly disappointing for the expectations entering the season.
There is a Jed Hoyer quote that just rang so true to me, and I'm going to remember this, and it's from The Athletic. It's from Patrick Mooney's piece about this team, the way it's constructed. Why does everybody feel so tightly wound right now? And we're all thinking some of these things. And Patrick Mooney is starting to ask some of these questions in the locker room. And he talks about what he's seeing in the locker room, of who's sticking around, who's kind of talking about baseball, what the tone is. And I always will preface stuff like this by saying, when we're not talking about hard evidence, I'm not as comfortable. I know this stuff is real. I know these are human beings, and the psychological stuff is absolutely real in a way in baseball that it may not be elsewhere. Although when we start talking about last night's basketball game, this is, again, the psychology matters. And here's what they said. Until the Cubs start stacking series wins again, it's worth wondering if this team misses some element of looseness, a different kind of leadership quality. Talking about this, there's a lot of serious professionals on this team. And this is, I'm adding my editorialization here, that there are a lot of people about routine and steadiness and being the same in there.
Not too high, not too low.
Right. Then you have PCA, who obviously is a different animal entirely, but because of his youth and because of so much veteran gravity on this team, PCA seems like emotionally an outlier with everything else that's going on. So that's my addition to this. Jed Hoyer said, "It's like your blessings and your curses are very close." Yeah, it's something you talk about. We are so unbelievably diligent and serious. Our preparation is excellent. When you're going well, you're like, oh my God, these guys are like a metronome every day. And then when we're going badly, it's like, oh my God, there's not enough levity in this room. I found that really interesting.
So so he knows that, like, what fans feel. Like,
he knows what he's put together too. He knows how it's that we tend to gravitate to, and this is an argument for teams reflecting leadership and teams reflecting who Theo Epstein used to talk about this, whether we know it or not. We're putting can a baseball team be this businesslike? And because when they're rolling, they're just like a constructed watch mechanism, they're like a self-winding spring. They don't need to really be managed. They don't need to be motivated. They do what they do. They know their zone. They do their jobs. Individual sport masquerading as a team sport. And then you get to this point where when a little thing is broken, everything is thrown off. So I wonder about the construction. It's like we talk about certain NFL defenses that are gap based. Well, you have this sort of house of cards problem where one guy gets out of his gap and then another guy steps in and says, I got to help him. And when it works, it looks perfect. And you say, why doesn't everybody do this? But when it somehow breaks down, you see how fragile it can be. And what I wonder is the Cubs' construction somehow fragile in a way that we didn't understand?
It's very interesting, first off, that he said this like publicly, in my opinion. I I could go into reasons for that, but it just surprises me that he would say like just so openly like
It's
that.
it's like your
based off of
blessings
it.
and your curses are very close.
Right. And it's not just this year's team that it feels like this when it comes to the offense. Second half of last year, the entire offense just kind of fell apart. You had 3 good hitters in the second half of last year: Ian Happ, Matt Shaw, and Nico Horner.
How about
All right.
going back to all the post World Series? How
Yeah.
many times did Theo Epstein say our offense broke?
Right. I think that was after the 2018 season. Yes.
Yeah, you can't fire Chili Davis again.
Right. Right. It is interesting, the pattern, the trend, you want to call like it is a trend. And in the years that you mentioned, Theo Epstein was still the head, the head guy, but Jed Hoyer was the general manager too. And so he had his print on those team build, the way those teams were built too. But those teams also like they still had something that this team doesn't have in terms of character. And I don't know how much that matters. But when this team isn't playing well, like a lot of the way fans describe them is just lifeless and boring and just like I think those are the 2 best ways to explain it. But I think a lot of people would explain that for their teams if they're struggling as well. But even when they're winning, you just described it very businesslike. And so maybe it is the kind of the same thing when they're playing well. Maybe it's because they don't have a lot of characters on this team except for PCA and maybe some others that I'm not thinking off the top of my head, but PCA is the biggest character on this team. But you look at 10 years ago, 7 years ago, you had more than just Anthony Rizzo. You had John Lester who brought a certain energy, a certain character to that team, a veteran that people listen to. And I'm not saying people don't listen to guys on this team now. There's just
Javier
just felt different.
Baez. I mean, having
Baez,
the wild card of because you never knew what Baez was going to do.
Right.
I think PCA has that, but he almost exists deferentially to all of the veterans there.
Yeah.
If anything, and I don't want this to be a slight against Ian Happ, but if you had to pick one player whose personality and whose game is emblematic of these Cubs teams where he's been for 10 years now, I think it's Ian Happ. I think it's somebody who is good. Like you say, are they good? Yeah, he's clearly good at baseball, but there's binges of success. There's long stretches of still being a responsible baseball player, a very highly responsible, almost, I don't want to say responsible to a fault, but it's like there is a professionalism and a responsibility that underpins everything. And it's almost, it's like I don't want to say self-limiting, but it feels like it's a narrow range in there of this is how I'm not going to risk this for this. I'm not going to risk this for this. I'm just always going, when all is said and done, I'm always going to be good and try not to be too emotional one way or another. And I'm trying to pin down what that thing is with this team that makes it so frustrating.
I think a lot of fans, when you say pin down what that is, I think a lot of fans would tell you it's the mentality that Craig Counsell brings to this team. And whether you agree with me on that or not, but whether you do or not, it's Craig Counsell's personality fits everything that we're kind of talking about. Very business-like. He's very even keel. He never gets too high, too low. Hell, I got so many fans online always asking me why this guy doesn't, stick up for his players, even though that's not true. But they feel like they don't, because there might be a moment in a game where they feel like he should go and talk to the umpire and get thrown out, and he doesn't do it. It's because he's a very even keel guy. I know it's very meatballish.
Yeah, what do they want? Lou Piniella?
Right.
Throwing bats out of the dugout.
I think that's what they want. Yes.
It's baseball. That's silly.
Right. I tend to agree. There are moments from Craig Counsell that I wish he just, in post game, especially during the stretch, it's like in post game sometimes you just wish there was there was just something a little bit more. I don't know what it is. It's not that I want him to yell at the media and say and call someone out. It's more of just something else. It's the same answers, it's the same tone, and it's just very businesslike and it's very boring. And I think Craig Counsell is a good manager. I think he has put this team in a position, if you just put it all together, he's put this team in a position to have success. There's something missing there, but at the end of the day, I still think it's more so about the players just not performing. Craig Counsell can't hit for Alex Bregman, right? He can't hit for Seiya Suzuki, right? There's only so much he can do. But I think in terms of the mentality of this team and how you just kind of view them, it does kind of start with him there. And if you want to talk about criticism for him and how this team hasn't flipped the switch to just getting back to playing better baseball, at some point you have to put some blame on him for that.
Yeah, most teams have a guy, usually a veteran, who kind of feels the energy in a clubhouse and is willing to do something stupid for the benefit of the team.
Yeah.
I mean it. I've been around some teams. I'm talking about whether it is a stupid prank or putting a whoopee cushion on somebody's chair. Like there are times and places where I heard stories, and I'm not going to mention who, but there are, and this, I mean, there's cross sport stuff here, but there are times where a basketball team is going badly, and I've seen a coach show up and just say, "Look, we're not going to use basketball. Where are the balls? Where's the ball rack? It's not here today. Don't worry about it. We're going to do some other things today," and they'll play stupid games or something like that, and just completely you get some kind of shock to the system that's completely unexpected. Or there was Joe Madden was a little too self-consciously good about some of that stuff, where it became a thing where it was very look at me.
Yeah.
Or look how crazy and silly and hippy dippy I am. And it took away, but the truth of what he did in that way, some of that stuff works a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these guys want to show up and not know what's going on and be a little bit surprised, get out of their routine, shocked out of their routine for no reason. Another example is there was a quarterback I know who played in the NFL. And when he was in college, in a conference, a key conference game, at one point got back to the huddle, and they're in the 2-minute drill, and they're all looking at him, and he'll tell this story. I'm not going to say who it is. But he looked at everybody and he looked at their faces and he says, "We're going to sing a song." And they're like, "What?" And he goes, "Let's sing a song. Let's see how many verses of 100 bottles of beer on the wall we can get through before we break the huddle." And I was like, "What the fuck?" and he just started singing, and then they left the huddle. It was like, "I'll call the play at the line, break."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's just like, what? And it kind of reset the circuits a little bit. I don't know if it's possible at this level. It's their job, and I don't want to get too anecdotal here, but they look like that they just need a vacation.
Yeah. Well, I thought, listening to you talk about the White Sox on DBU yesterday, you're talking about, them bringing up guys like Braden Montgomery and all these other young guys throughout this young season, and they've all just kind of fit in, and they're having all this fun, and you look at the record and it's like it's way better than anyone expected, and they're also, the expectation there is so much lower. They're all young and they don't know any better.
It's free and easy,
right?
And the Cubs are the opposite of free and easy.
I just described the 2015 Cubs in a way. Like that's how that team was. And that was Joe Madden's first year. And he's bringing in freaking a giraffe. And I remember they did the onesie trip to LA, and Arrieta threw the no-hitter against the Dodgers that year in that series. And like they did all kinds of wild and wacky things. That team was also really young and not what this roster is. So while I get that, and while I think that something like that could help with this team, I'm just not sure that kind of manager would fit with this team as well. So I think there has to be
right. Nobody would buy it. Nobody would buy it. If Craig Counsell showed up dressed like Milton Berle, nobody's buying it. And that's why you have this sort of Jed Hoyer business-like mentality. And I admire it, because you do need that equanimity, that sort of placid demeanor in baseball, but you can't force it on people.
The only thing from this conversation that I think fans should take from it is every fan who is coming to me and telling me that they just don't care. What we're talking about is showing how much they do care. Maybe they need to just not care for like a couple hours and find a way to reset the circuit, like you said.
Yeah.
But you cannot sit here and tell me that they don't care, that the organization doesn't care, because
no, are you kidding? If anything, it's too much, and these capacitors are just overburdened with all kinds of static right now. It's everything's overloaded. It's whatever analogy you want to use. This team's a little screwed up.
Yeah.
This team's a little screwed up. They need like a magic Deus Ex Machina Ted Lasso kind of answer here. But unfortunately, they're in danger of swept by the Rockies, and we get the news that there's more injuries. And somewhere Boyd is figuring out what's wrong with him, is now his shoulder hurts. There was a bunch of other injury related stuff that we were getting updated on, was there not?
Yeah. So the Boyd thing, it's just having a setback. He's, like Counsell said, that it's not that serious. They just want to take it slow, basically, is what I got out of it. We'll see when he comes back, but it's still brutal because they need him. They desperately need him. I don't know what the results are going to be, but they need him. But the other injury updates came from Megan Montemurro from, I believe, the Chicago Tribune yesterday. Jackson Wiggins, who has been out with elbow inflammation since April, finally getting an update on him. He's throwing live BP, could get into games soon, which is huge, as he's their number one pitching prospect. A name that a lot of Cubs fans probably don't even remember, but the Cubs signed Tyler Austin in I think it was December of last year. He spent 6 years in Japan, and then he got hurt in spring training, early part of spring training, had knee surgery, and she says there's not much progress, questionable if he's back before the end of the season. He was signed to kind of replace Justin Turner. That was going to be his role. And now we might not even see him at all this year. And he was just signed to a 1-year deal for $1 million. I don't know how much he would have impacted this team. But at the time, I really did like the signing, just because it was for the role, at least. $1 million for a guy like this who had been hitting really well in Japan, compared to $6 million for Justin Turner. I thought it was a great buy low deal. More significant ones here, I think Hunter Harvey, his triceps injury, still no significant progress, which is just really disappointing considering what we had hoped that he could be in the bullpen for the Cubs this year. So I don't really know. It just says no significant progress. And Riley Martin with an elbow injury, he's playing catch. So I don't know. I guess that's better than not playing catch.
All right.
There's not really a lot of good here outside of Jackson Wiggins. And we'll see if Boyd comes back next week. Was hoping that we'd get Boyd. I thought we were going to get him this series, but he was scheduled originally to pitch in the Giants series, and now it's with the setback. It's going to be sometime. I hope next week. Hopefully, it's just a couple days based off what Counsell said, but we'll see. One last thing. I would like to know an update on Ethan Conrad, their number one draft pick from last year, who has not played one minor league game yet this year. Just nothing. They've given us nothing about Ethan Conrad. I would love to know. So,
I hadn't even thought of that. You give me new things to worry about. I can always count on you for that. Thank you.
Well, I'm curious because he could be a trade piece, or we're talking about a future outfielder here, and with the guys that they could be moving on from after the season,
Yep.
and he's their number one draft pick from last year. It's a very important part of the future, at least. So
Yeah, not to mention the fact that they gave up Owen Casey.
yeah.
But we'll see. Russ Armstrong, the owner of Chicago Window Guys, actually comes out to your house to do the estimate for you. That's what he does. He's really good at it, and he's not sending some kid out there to do it, and then he looks it over, and it takes 3 weeks for them to get through their estimate. He's the owner of the company, and he comes over, and he wants to know what kind of windows you want, how many you're looking at, what the goals are of your window replacement. Are you redecorating? Are you just replacing? Are you trying to save money on heating and cooling? Whatever it is, he can make all those things work. And he comes out and he looks around and he'll give you a number, and it's that simple. And you'll notice if you are getting quotes from other window companies, when you do ask those sales reps who's installing your windows, because they're not going to know. I don't know. Our installers are going to do it. Well, a lot of that is third-party labor where they don't know who the people are in and around your house. That's no fun. You should go with Russ, because Russ has his crew that does the installation. The very same people who have installed my windows are going to install yours. He'll match any price. And he's going to explain why these teasers of buy one, get one free or buy one, get one 50% off and all that are just that he can get you great windows at a great price with the best experience from start to finish. That's what he does. He's here in Chicago. The factory is here in Chicago, and he handles it for you. So don't wait. Call him 847-302-9171 and check out Russ's 5-star reviews at ChicagoWindowGuys.com. I know, Cody, you've been looking at some of these numbers where we keep hearing RISP. And every time if you flip back to the game and the Cubs, you see that those little bases are lit up. You're like, oh, okay, here's a scoring chance.
Yeah, I believe in this series, Cubs are 0 for 12 with runners in scoring position.
0 for 12.
At Coors Field, by the way.
0 for 12.
Just completely
like
unacceptable.
Like one.
Yeah. Can't even get one. But this morning, I mentioned earlier, I've been waking up really early. I did wake up a little bit later today, but plenty of time to just kind of go on to Fangraphs and look at things that are bothering me. And obviously, Cubs with runners in scoring position has been a massive topic among people talking about the Cubs. And so I'd sent some tweets, and it includes cut the offense with runners in scoring position entering today. But then in the thread, it's the Cubs offense and what Fangraphs calls high leverage. And high leverage on Fangraphs is described as a situation refers to any point in a baseball game that will significantly impact which team ultimately wins. And I think that high leverage is a better stat to look at than runners in scoring position, because I've seen it many times. The Cubs could go 3 for 15 with runners in scoring position. They still win because maybe they hit 2 or 3 2-run homers or something like that. You know what I mean? So there is more context, I believe, into the high leverage stat compared to runners in scoring position. But I'll start with RISP. 764 play appearances with runners in scoring position. That's third in baseball, which is great. We've talked about that. But they're 29th in batting average with RISP at 222. They're 20th in on-base percentage at 323. And they're 29th in baseball in slugging at 347. Which comes out to a 670 OPS, which is 28th in MLB. An 89 WRC plus is 24th. 299 weighted on base average is 25th. And their K rate is 10th in baseball with runners in scoring positions at 22.5%. And that's not good. You don't want to be striking out with runners in scoring position, right?
Correct.
So that's the highest ranking, but that's not where you want to be. So about as we have all said, me, you, and Matt, it just hasn't been good with runners in scoring position. And the thing about the high leverage stat that was interesting to me was that all those stats, I won't read them because they're all generally in the same ranking. They're anywhere from 10th to 13th in all those stats in high leverage. Like, for instance, in high leverage, they're 13th in batting average at 256. They have a 414 slug in high leverage situations. They have a 762 OPS in high leverage situations, which is 10th in baseball. But the one stat, and this goes back to K rate, they're 9th in K rate in high leverage spots. So they're striking out a lot in those high leverage spots. And again, I just found it very interesting where they ranked in high leverage spots compared to runners in scoring position. But again, this is the entire season. And we remember March and April, the offense was playing really well. Maybe those stats inflated a little bit. If I went back to just May 8th and did it, I bet that those numbers would be significantly worse. But I don't know what else to say about it other than maybe the high leverage spots can bring a little bit of optimism about down the road, but at some point it just really doesn't matter. You have to score, or you have to get hits with runners in scoring position to score runs, unless this team's just going to only hit homers, which they're not doing that either. So
and that's only the half of it, because the bigger problem right now is the number of runs they're allowing. That since May 9th, the Cubs have the second worst ERA in baseball. The Cubs have a negative FWAR in pitching since May 9th.
Among starting pitchers.
Yeah. Right? Come on, man. This is, if we're only talking about the excruciating pain of the inability to score runs, other than we're talking about last night, and we'll see Cabrera out there again, but it just, you're asking, so everything feels like it's on fumes right now, that you're hoping your pitching keeps you in the game. You're hoping you can score more than 3 runs. And then everything adds to this pressure cooker of all these situations mattering more. And there might be a little bit of choke aspect to this, because so many people are so worried about every single event in a game. It's hard. There's really no room here. Everything, we're magnifying every single moment, and call it whatever you want. Call it pressing, call it tightness, call it just the natural downside of everybody's straightforward business-like approach. But it's crumbling at the moment. The question that I have is, can it be salvaged? And I'm not talking about just selling off pieces at the deadline. I'm saying, can this team get some of this back? And I don't know the answer. I don't know how.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to go into this one mailbag question that I got. That, I got a lot of mailbag questions related to like who should be fired and this and that. And like, we've kind of talked a lot about that in this episode in terms of like the mentality of this team, Craig Counsell, the Jed Hoyer stuff. But the one question that I got that I feel like is good to end the show here is from Zaid, I believe is how he says his name. Okay. I DM with him all the time. He's from overseas. I forgot which country, but he is from overseas. So thanks for listening.
Well, we got to know, because we're big in other countries. I want to know from where he is.
He's always interacting with me, so I will I'll figure it out eventually.
Okay, good.
But he just simply asked, should we start the panic mode about missing the playoffs? And for me, I just, it's hard not to panic. The saving grace is that they're 500 and it's June 11th. So should I panic? No, because there's still a lot of baseball games to play. But when you just watch this team, it's like, what shows you that things are going to turn around? Whether it's me talking about the Cubs offense with runners in score position or in high leverage spots, or like you just mentioned, the Cubs starting pitchers, the Cubs starting staff, cumulative over the last month, have been worth not even 0 WAR. They're negative WAR. You got a great start out of Shota Imanaga last night. Hopefully it's a good trend moving forward. It was against the Rockies, but it was at Coors Field. I don't know what to take away from it, but to me, the offense will eventually come around, but the starting pitching does have to be a lot better, because when I think about the second half of last year and how the offense really wasn't good in the second half of last year, the reason they made the playoffs was because of starting pitching. The thing is, though, is Cade Horton was a big part of that, and you don't have Cade Horton this time. And I don't know how you get to the trade deadline staying afloat right now. So for me, I am in some form of a panic mode. I don't know if there's levels of panic, but
yeah, it's just the question is over what are you panicking? Are you panicking because this team that was believed to be a 90 to 95 win team is certainly less than that? Are we using the playoffs as an arbitrary standard? Because are you saying if they make the playoffs, everything's okay? I don't think so.
No.
I don't think if you limp into the last wild card that all of a sudden like this, it's bigger than that right now.
Yeah.
That whatever is happening with this team, even if they were to squeak in and make the playoffs, say, all right, new season, is it really? Is it? I mean, technically it is, and we know that there's a randomness to it, but do you trust them?
No.
Could they get the trust back though? Could something happen? Could they, if they had an 8-game winning streak right now, right now they just went on an 8-game winning streak, would you trust them for a team that's already had 2 10-game winning streaks and all of a sudden be like, yeah, they're cured, that's it, it's okay? Because I think in a person who's experienced what we've experienced this year would be a little more guarded than that.
Yeah, I think the narrative about them just being extremely streaky would just continue. I do think though that if for that scenario, for them to go on a winning streak, it does start with starting pitching. So you need Edward Cabrera to show up and be the guy you traded Owen Casey for, man. Like that, to me, he's got to be, if he's not going to be the guy, he's just got to be better than what he's been, And Ben Brown has been like your ace that you didn't try to give that role to, but he's kind of stolen that role. So if Edward Cabrera can just be better to go with Ben Brown, at least that's a solid 1-2 punch theoretically. And then who knows what with Shota, his problem is just giving up homers. I think he generates so much chase and stuff that like maybe there's a more middling ground because it was so good early and then he's been so bad of late. Like where's the middle? Those are the 3 guys. The rest, I don't know. They need Boyd back, but he was an all-star last year. He's coming off one of his best seasons, but he's injury prone. I don't know. But to me, if there was something that would get me to believe in this team again, it's if starting pitching was significantly better. Because I've watched this team win when the offense wasn't good. Pitching was so much better, though.
Well, we'll continue to hope, but the performance currently in Colorado against one of baseball's dregs is not inspiring. And let's put a pin in this day. And if you want to declare rock bottom at the moment, maybe it's always darkest before the dawn, and a month later you'll come back and laugh at it. But you can go ahead and put the odds on that however you want it. But that is today's Off the Ivy. Thoughts on whatever is happening with your maddening Chicago Cubs. We will be here for you through the thick and the thin. And we have been brought to you on Off the Ivy by Russ Armstrong, who is the owner of Chicago Window Guys here in Chicago. Chicago Window Guys can be reached at 847-302-9171. And you can check out their 5-star reviews at chicagowindowguys.com. You have Bernstein and Delmendo on 312 Sports.
A Chicago Cubs podcast with Dan Bernstein, Matt Abaticola, and Cody Delmendo on 312 Sports.